I think I know everybody anyway. I'm the chairperson of Addison County Right to Life, and we thought we'd put this on to start off some informational meetings throughout the summer. We may do another one, try to inundate people with the information that Mary has and that Carol has. So I will turn it over to Mary Beerworth.
Thank you, Heather. Heather is the new taking leadership on for Addison County Right to Life, and boy, she's a go-getter. This is a great turnout. We had said we would go wherever 2 or 3 wanted to come together, and this is a nice crowd. Thank you very, very much. So I am Mary Hahn Beerworth. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont Right to Life. Before COVID, we had a nice dinner here every year, and that's kind of fallen by the wayside. But now it's extremely important that everyone become educated. I'm pretty sure you all know why you're here, because there's an attempt to amend Vermont's Constitution for the first time in 200 years. Now, we've made changes to the Constitution in sort of the structural parts of government, but in Article 1, Chapter 1 has not been amended for, I was just going to show you the page. Hang on one second, because it's quite important. This is where the Chapter 1 outlines all of the sort of basic rights that people have. And so it goes for a few pages enumerating those rights. And then right here, last time it was amended, 1786.
Wow.
And so it'll fill this blank space in here.
That's before we were a state.
Have I got it right?
1791 we became a state.
Yep, well, you're my historian, and you're hysterical, but make sure I have that right. I'll take a double check on saying that right, but it's been a long,
No, I'm not questioning, I'm just saying,
When did we
That's
become
impressive.
a state? 1770,
March 4, 1791.
1791? So think about, let that just penetrate. One of the reasons they gave in the State House for, is he got it? Well, I get it to be right.
Well, we had a constitution as a republic.
Yeah, we are a republic.
In
Okay.
77,
Thank
14 years, yeah.
Okay. 1777, that's the date that was in my mind. Okay. So anyway, one of the reasons they said we had to do this amendment was because our Constitution was one of the shortest constitutions in the country.
What?
I mean, it's just, it's virtual insanity, it really is. So what
I'm
are
sorry,
we going?
excuse me, say that again? Did the amendment shortest constitution?
Yes, shortest, we have one of the shortest constitutions in the country. And it served us well all these years, but that was one of the reasons they gave. And I will tell you right now, they have, there'll be 2 on your ballot at November 8th, 2022, but they have another at least 6 amendments that they intend to push into our Constitution that are so wildly unsupportable. But if they win on this, they're coming up fast and furious after that. Okay? So I want to just keep you motivated. This is big. This is about your state, and it's about your children and your grandchildren and what they're going to find in. So keep in mind, our Constitution has served us well. So does unlimited, unregulated abortion belong in the Vermont Constitution? Now, that's just part of what this amendment can mean to us. So I'm going to read it to you. It's tedious to listen to. It's 1 sentence long. That an individual's right to personal reproductive autonomy is central to the liberty and dignity to determine one's own life course and shall not be denied or infringed unless justified by a compelling state interest achieved by the least restrictive means. So, see, it looks good, doesn't it? And that's what the point is. They wanted it to look easy. Personal reproductive autonomy sounds good. And the language of compelling state interest and the least restrictive means I'll explain in just a minute. But as I already said, it would add a new Article 22 to Chapter 1 of the Constitution, not since 1793, and it's unprecedented because no other state has used this language. This language is untested, untried anywhere else in the country. So it's a long haul to amend the Constitution, and I think our founding fathers had it right. It takes 4 years. It has to go through the House and Senate 2 times in 2 different bienniums, but now we're almost at the end of the game. So they chose a time in Vermont history where the supermajority of Planned Parenthood, pro-abortion, Democrats and progressives own both chambers of the House. And it does not go to the governor's desk. There's no veto, and the language cannot be changed. And it couldn't be changed throughout the whole process, but any kind of rhyme, reason, or wisdom was totally blocked. We were there, we testified, we documented what they said. So we have a shelf full of books. We haven't even begun to transcribe everything they said, but what we tell you is virtually what they said, and we can prove it. So we already had one of those instances where the Legislative Council in St. Johnsbury said, I never said that. So the editor of the paper called us up, and we went right to the recorded tape and to the transcript, and yes, she did say that. So we're going to be trying to make sure we only have factual and substantiated information. So the language came from, developed in our own Attorney General's office. T.J. Donovan invited Planned Parenthood in, the ACLU, legislative lobbyists for Planned Parenthood, and some of the top legislative leaders in the state in 2018. We did make a Freedom of Information request to get those minutes of those meetings, and Planned Parenthood called them the abortion group. And so 19 members of his staff were used to concoct Act, you guys all remember H57 that put unlimited, unregulated abortion into statute. That's now Act 47. They drafted that inside the office, and a companion to that is the constitutional amendment that I just read to you. Now, just a second. So that was all done kind of behind the scenes in 2018. Then these people running for re-election didn't mention a word of it. And then immediately in 2019, Becca Balint, who's now running for the US House, she's the Senate pro tem, she announced that abortion would be the centerpiece of the 2019 legislative session. That was a shock to all of us. With all the things wrong with Vermont, that abortion would be the centerpiece. And they kicked off their rally in the State House. My new coworker was there, and the lobbyists came in saying, who loves abortion? And the answer was, we do, we do.
Oh, that's
So, Mayor, when they said that, correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2019, you already could get an abortion anytime you wanted at that time.
Exactly.
So that was their centerpiece of
the
their whole
unnecessary
platform
centerpiece.
was to promote abortion, when at that time and still today, you can get an abortion at any time already, right?
No, that's exactly correct. So I'll just repeat what you're saying. But it did, so by passing into law and enacting Act 47, they did insert into statute unlimited, unregulated abortion, but it was always unlimited because Vermont, under a Leahy-Beecham case, overturned the pro-life laws in the state a full year before Roe. So that's our state's attorney at the time, Patrick Leahy, now the retiring US Senator, was supposed to defend the pro-life laws for Vermont and failed to do so, and he brags that he failed to do so, and the case went into effect in 1972. So a full year before Roe, all 50 years since, abortion's been unlimited and unregulated. But they wanted the security of having it in a statute. So they devoted that entire session. And God bless all of you who might have come to the first public hearing. We pro-lifers filled that state house. There wasn't even breathing room. Not just in the House chambers, but every hallway, every extra room. And it was the night of a snowstorm. We estimated over 700 people came out for that. It enraged that this could be happening in our state. And so thank you for that. Some people had like a 4-hour drive home, but we won't mention that because the weather was terrible. And they barely had enough people to testify on the Planned Parenthood side. So I'm a little off track, let me get back to it. So it was developed, our taxpayer dollars, all in the Attorney General's office. I've always said Planned Parenthood is actually the fourth branch of government. Whatever they want, they seem to get, and they bully to get their way. Now, somebody else said, oh, I think you want to say they're a shadow government, but you can take your pick. So when I said I would go back to that compelling state interest and least restrictive means. Be very clear, do not let someone fool you. That language is the highest standard you can set to protecting the right, if it passes, that will be put into the Constitution. It doesn't mean the state could find a compelling state interest in the life of the unborn. It does not mean we could balance rights that are infringed. It means it's protecting personal reproductive autonomy to the highest standard. So in my Constitution book here, no other of the rights in that chapter 1 are protected by a compelling state interest by the least restrictive means. So that deceived, the rumor went around in the Senate, people were deceived, they thought that language meant that we maybe could ban late-term abortions. They are utterly and completely mistaken. So some folks voted for it who really shouldn't have. And then they always had that deceptive, well, we should let the people decide. Well, I'm not afraid to let the people decide, and we testified. Put the word abortion in, put the word woman in. And the Attorney General actually said, yeah, if you want to be clear, put the word abortion in. So did the Legislative Council, so did the ACLU. And the chair of jurisdiction, the Committee on Senate Health and Welfare, declined to do so because she wanted it to mean more than just abortion. So they use the word individual. Carol's going to talk to you about what an individual really is. And remember, because men can have babies too. And they use personal reproductive autonomy because they wanted it to mean more than just abortion. So Vermont taxpayers, a lot of questions did not get answered. We asked a host of questions, and every time they didn't know the answer, they said the courts will decide. So pretty ironic that we're going to turn over our personal reproductive autonomy to the courts. But that is where you will wind up. We already pay for about 1/3 of the abortions in the state of Vermont under court order. I would say with a right that's elevated that high, we'll be paying for all abortions. We'll pay for sterilization. Definitely talked about sterilization, and then remember, you can reverse the sterilization. Are we paying for all of it? It opens the door to all kinds of services: infertility, surrogacy, sale of human embryos, experimentation. We will not be able to protect an unborn child, and we also might have to pay for anything that they can find is a reproductive autonomy right. And we're already funding Planned Parenthood, but that could get worse. They, in their own words, Paige Fieser, who is the public affairs organizer for Planned Parenthood, said, Proposal 5 will open up a range of different questions for future lawmakers for years to come. So they intend to be busy on this. And Planned Parenthood's new field is the transgender hormones. I'm going to probably, let me just see, I'm going to stop after this. So you can find them drastically expanding that idea of reproductive rights to a host of issues. So try to let your imagination take you where this can go, okay? If I have a personal reproductive autonomy right that's elevated over anyone else's right to anything, and I want to have a baby, well, can I get free daycare? Because if it's my right, do I need all the help I can get? Free education, free daycare. They even say defund the police, food security, housing stability, environmental justice, immigrant rights, disability rights, and much more. Now that's them, that's their words, not mine. So I was just talking earlier about the raft of legislators who are resigning, and there are so many. Out of 30 senators, 11 are stepping down. So there's one or two things happening. Either the rats are jumping off the ship, or they think they can get everything they ever wanted, like in a socialist type nature, from this constitutional right. So I have 100 more slides and I talk way too much. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol, and then we'll come back for questions. And
Just a real quick one.
Mm-hmm.
It can wait till later if it needs to, but can you tell us how it will affect care centers?
Oh, yes,
At some
definitely.
point, okay.
So pregnancy care centers are you know, the future for us. We've been dropping the number of abortions. That didn't happen without the 8 or 9 pregnancy resource centers, and you have a terrific one here, right here in Addison County. I will get back to it. Make sure you pick this one up. On one side, it talks about compromising our healthcare system by forcing doctors and nurses to participate. Planned Parenthood believes you shouldn't be a nurse if you won't participate in abortions. It's the full range of healthcare, and you're an illegitimate provider if you don't provide. So we tested that water this year. Representative Ann Donahue went to the committee chairs. She said, Vermont is one of only 2 states that we don't have conscience protection in statute. So she put in a bill. She said, if this is going to strip conscience protection rights, we need to have it in statute. You know, we need to close that door. So a challenge goes to court. Legislative intent says that we wanted to protect conscious rights. Well, how does that affect all funded by, you know, Vermont dollars Pregnancy Resource Center? Knock, 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 I want an abortion. Well, we don't provide abortions here. Well, that's my constitutional right. You're offering reproductive services of other kinds. Would it hold up in court? We'd have to see. But I'm very fearful. They did put in a bill. Dr. George Till, he is a legislator from Jericho, and he put in a bill wanting to shut the pregnancy centers down for being deceptive. So they're under attack. The other bill they put in, you know, they talk too much. I know I do. So in Burlington, they are going to get one of the mobile units, one of those vans that has an ultrasound and they can drive it all around town. Well, there's a bill in the legislature to ban mobile units with advertising.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, so that intention is there. So whenever I'm talking to you, I hope you know, we only can imagine where it will take us. It's definitely going to take challenges, will go to court. But what will be the decision? It'll be in the hands of a judge. So, we didn't get to have Vermonters for Good Government, but we'll come back. And that was my mistake. I confused absolutely everybody. But they'll be a force to be reckoned with. But I'm delighted that the other force to be reckoned with is Carol Kaufman, who has been a family and pro-parent, pro-family advocate in this community for a long, long time. So she's going to tell you about Vermont Family Alliance. I'll get your slides up here. I have, wait a minute, I thought I had. See how many I could bore you with?
There you go.
All right?
And which one do I
See,
do?
right, just this one.
Push that?
Yeah. You want to put this down here, get the step on this side. So just that now.
Okay. If you can't hear me, just raise your hand and I'll try to speak louder. My name is Carol Kaufman. I'm a mother of 8 children. We adopted 3 out of the Vermont foster care. And last Saturday, I watched the movie Whose Children Are They? And I've always been a little bit squeamish when I hear people say child abuse is in the public school, grooming is in this public school, but you need to watch this movie. Child abuse is in the public school, and grooming is in the public school, and it's the reproductive autonomy. And if Vermont allows Article 22 to become constitutional law, we will, I mean, I can't imagine that it'll get worse, but teachers, activists, your good teachers will not be able to handle this, what's going on. They're gonna leave and they will bring in the activists. And the families, my grandkids are gone, but the families who cannot leave the public school will have no place to go. And so that's a great movie to watch if you want to step up with action. You really need to get some insight of what's going on and what you're fighting against.
Can you go to the name again?
It's called Whose Children Are They? And I'll leave everything up here. So what's really interesting is that if you are in a family situation and there's a divorce, you will go before a judge. And there's a law, Vermont, for domestic relations. And when you go before the judge, in Chapter 664, Parental Rights and Responsibilities means the right and responsibilities related to a child's physical living arrangements, education, medical and dental care, religion, travel, and any other matter involving a child's welfare and upbringing. So those parents have to come before a judge before any decisions are made, and yet our state government is making the decisions, and they are literally kicking the parents out of the village. And they're replacing, and I'm going to make an argument tonight, they're replacing the parents with Planned Parenthood. So, so in national conversation, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and you know, pray for those kids in the public school.
Yeah.
But when there's that struggle within children, I watch my grandkids. The other day, my three grandsons were on a trampoline, and one was a cobra, one was a cheetah, right? And they have all of this play that they do. I remember my daughter wanted a sister, and the ones that let her, would dress them up. So it's okay to let kids be kids, but kids cannot be kids anymore. But Nancy Reese, if you don't want to buy the books, you can find their interviews on YouTube. But she wrote the book Love Thy Body, that when kids do get confused, and if we don't push them, it's like 90% will work it out after puberty. And so, so they're very interested in getting children before puberty. If you want a secular author, Kara Dansky, and she wrote The Abolition of Sex. And her concern, she's abortion rights, all of that, but her concern is that women's spaces that they've fought for so long, that they're losing them. So we've seen it in sports, right? We see it in homeless shelters, in prisons. They're allowing biological men in prisons. So if you look at Act 47, and as Mary talked about Article 22, they're using neutral language, so individual. And even in Act 47, it doesn't have the word woman. And so her thing is that they're taking the female gender out of the laws. Dr. Deborah Soule, I forget what, she was at Ivy League school. She decided when she was going to write her book that she would have to resign and get her packages all put together, and so she did, and now she has written the book, The End of Gender. And her concern, she is a sex neuroscientist, and her concern is that laws like the one I'm going to talk about, Act 35, that good sex therapists are leaving the field, and also laws like Act 35 that we'll talk about also prevent a sex therapist from working with the root causes of a child. So I'll give you two examples. One child, she talks about, she's finding girls get into porn because they have this phone thing, and they look at this really out of control porn and they think, man, I don't want to be a girl. And she says that they're not even allowed to have conversations like that. I heard a story about a little boy in Ohio, and he decided he wanted to be a girl. And so his parents took him to their choice of therapist. And what they found out is that he had a little sister that was born who has special needs, and she got a lot of attention. And in his little mind, hey, I'm gonna wear the clothes she wears, and of course he did get the attention, right? So when they found that out and gave him what he needed, he was fine. And so kids are asking questions, they just don't have the language. So this is a crazy law that probably not too many people know about, and it's Act 35. And Act 35 really resembles Article 22, what the ramifications of Article 22 is going to be. And it says a minor may give consent to receive any legally authorized outpatient treatment from a mental health professional. Consent under this section shall not be subject to disaffirmance due to the minority of the person consenting. The consent of a parent or legal guardian shall not be necessary to authorize outpatient treatment. As used in this section, outpatient treatment means psychotherapy. You know, they just kind of throw that in. But in reality, this law does not say that it has to be a licensed therapist. It just means, you know, it could be a psychotherapist, and other counseling services that are supportive and not prescription drugs, at least not at this point. Prohibition of conversion therapy, that's exactly what she's talking about. That they have decided what the reproductive activists within our government, our governor, they have decided what conversion therapy is. So conversion therapy is that you're not allowed to work in getting the mind to accept your perception of your body. The only way you can go with is with that child. So the child comes in and is struggling, and you have to affirm what the child is saying. But my question is, if a child comes in and wants to commit suicide, are they going to affirm that? And so this is really just activism.
Hey, Carol,
Yeah.
can I interrupt you and just to find out, I'm a little confused on Act 35.
Me too.
Yeah.
Is that an act in Vermont already? Or
Yeah.
is it something that's being proposed?
Right. No, Act 35 was actually passed 2017.
So
And
that's law now?
yeah, so that's what I wanted to tell you. Mary talked about, they talk about future courts. So by the time anybody goes to court, Act 35 is going to be legislative intent for about 5 years. This is going to be used in future courts as legislative intent. And most people don't even know that it exists, right? So, yeah. So, and the crazy thing is, which we'll just go to, so Act 35 actually preceded let's see, Article 22 was voted in 2019.
Right.
So it's just like these guys have lined up. Their ducks are, they're evil.
Stripping parents' rights. They're
Right,
systematically and methodically
Right.
moving.
Right, definitely. Yeah, thank you. So, so no one is talking about what we know so much about, and that's the teenage brain, right? We know about this. I mean, they do scans. It's amazing. And so with Act 35, we did a public record request, and we just asked questions. So how is the child going to know? How how's it gonna be paid for if you're not telling the parents, right? So we received a release information. So a child, there's no age limit on Act 35. Remember Article 22 constitutional law, there is no age limit. They rejected all the amendments that people tried to put on it, some restrictions. And so this is, so the question is, who are the adults? Who are the adults who are gonna tell the child, you don't need to involve your parents, who are gonna transport your child? Although Planned Parenthood now does telehealth, so actually our children won't even have to leave the public school. And, but yet, I mean, why, if you're gonna do all this, why are you making a child sign this, right? I mean, there's a craziness to it. What's that?
I'm just saying, you know, children, at least depending on what age we're talking about, they don't know anymore. Sometimes they don't even know what they're signing.
Absolutely.
So it's just like, hey, here's the piece of paper, sign it. Okay, well, why do I gotta sign it?
Right. It's about the adult, and the adult has no oversight. So when the government gets involved in parents, for instance, like DCF, right? So that child goes into DCF, and that child is given a case plan, and then they have case reviews, the court's involved, there's a guardian ad litem, there's permanent records. Our Act 35, Article 22 have no safety guards for the minor or the parents. Yeah.
I think you should.
An underage child cannot enter into a legal contract. How can they do that?
Yeah, they're not vague.
I'm just
they
telling you, they're
can't.
crazy. I don't even know.
They know this is wrong on a moral and legal level, but
Right,
they're still
legally.
doing this.
They won't stand up because they're minors.
Well, it could be legal if Proposal 5 is passed, right? If it's a constitutional right for individuals, which is defined as a human being, which should include the unborn, but right now it doesn't.
But get there doesn't sound.
So they're doing this now, but Proposal 5 has not been passed. It doesn't make any sense.
This is already in our schools. Yeah, if you watch, they're already in our schools, the activists, activist teachers, and they're already using discrimination laws to keep parents outside of what's happening in the school with their child. And there's a lawsuit, and I'm so thankful for it. I think there's 2 coming out of Florida. I mean, it's a sad day when parents are having to go to court for their rights. And it's a sad day that, that we're having to pass parent right bills. And hopefully we can vote down Article 22, and then we can get a parent right bill going next year.
I was just going to comment that I actually read a copy of the Vermont State Constitution in its entirety. Not many people do that, but I did the other night. And I thought when my kids were in school, I had read a section that talked about immorality under the education department stuff. And I read, there also, our legislators take ethical, what do you call it?
To uphold the Constitution, they take a vow.
Those vows, and they even involve believing in God or Maker. And I mean, read it, they're just breaking the Constitution all the way through.
Yeah.
With their perversions and their, why isn't somebody pushing back on, we need some big guns, I think, to come in, and how about that
We
guy,
still-
Jay Secul, whatever his name is?
Yeah.
Get him to come
Well,
on.
they've been here. I mean, they have to have a case.
Yeah.
They were doing a UVM case, right? Yeah. So the last one is Abigail Schreier, and with this, so she wrote the book Irreversible Damage: The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters, and this is really just filled with evidence of Planned Parenthood, just how involved and the big money that they're looking forward to make off of this. And so this was introduced in 2022, and it's health, minors, consent, gender-affirming care. Statement of purpose of the bill is introduced. This bill proposes to allow a minor who identifies as a transgender to consent to receiving hormone blockers and other non-surgical gender-affirming care and treatment without requiring parental parents. So they're going to be able to hide under the Constitution if we don't stop Article 22. Anyway, you probably already read that, right? So here's the article, and I just want to touch on the highlighted. It's an individual's right to personal reproductive autonomy. Remember, the constitutional law has no age restrictions. Article 22 intentionally leaves reproductive autonomy undefined. Article 22 is dangerously open-ended. Amendments to the Constitution are virtually irreversible. And we have some flyers. And we hope, we don't raise money, so we hope you'll take a flyer and you'll copy and you'll share them and ask everyone else just to start sharing them. So on this, dangerously open-ended, Article 22 would erode the rights of parents and remove protections for children. Article 22 could allow unknown adults to usurp the role of parents. We talked about that. We talked about the hormone. But Article 22 could allow minors to be transported across state lines into Vermont to access reproductive autonomy rights. And court challenges can cripple Vermonters with astronomical legal costs.
Not to mention the sex trafficking.
Carol, so what you have written in the top paragraph, that's exactly how it's going to read on the ballot?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Right.
that is a.
Very,
Yeah.
unbelievably deceptive.
Yeah. Very
Unbelievably
deceptive. Yeah.
Doesn't say the whole thing.
Yeah. When what they're hoping, we've heard Governor Governor Scott, and we've heard Peter Sterling, and who was the other guy? He's running for
David
office.
Zuckerman, he's from Addison County.
Yeah, and they're all saying, you're gonna be able to put it in the Constitution, and they're using the word woman, and they're using the word abortion.
That's right.
And it's not anywhere to be found. And so they are evil and deceptive.
Carol, has anyone from any of our groups talked with an economist to try to speculate what this is going to cost Vermonters?
Litigation.
Not only litigation, but medical procedures. What are the suspected costs of this proposal?
I mean, all we can go to with that, I mean, I could never project something like that. I just know that there's laws. They're not established, they're not law yet, but they're signaling. So you have coverage of fertility-related services, reproductive health equity in health insurance coverage. Yeah, so they're already signaling that they want you to pay for the
There's a line
reproductive.
of proposals, but I'm not gathering that anyone has done a projective cost to this. No one's aware of
And
it.
you are right, that should have been part of the legislative debate,
Yes.
but they just raced it through. And so normally, something like that would go to a tax committee and take a look at it, but
Does anyone know of an economist in the state of Vermont who might be sympathetic to develop some projections for us.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I will see what I can come up with. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I would say it's gonna be really difficult to project something like that, but we'll take a look.
But they can use some stats that are already there.
They can.
You know, Blue Cross Blue Shield has them, a good number.
Blue Cross Blue Shield has endorsed Proposal 5.
Yes, and I'm sure that all Medicaid has also. But the stats are presently there, so they could then project.
I'm gonna take that under consideration, I really am, but I think that you should finish.
And they haven't even discussed it, that are they gonna cover people that come into Vermont? When you come into Vermont, will you then be under the protection of whatever comes with Article 22? So,
If other states are enacting laws that are effective, those people will come here if they can.
this one's really important because the word liberty. Liberty is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. So we know there's not going to be any age restrictions. So what liberties do we extend to our minors? Very few. They don't have a choice whether they go to school. We might fight with them, doctors, dentists, car seats. No alcohol until they're 21, no cigarettes till they're 21, and everyone is carded. Everyone is carded. So we have safety nets for our minors. Now all of a sudden, Article 22, nothing for our minors. Article 22 will leave minors outside the protection of the family and courts. There has been no parent input. It'll effectively allow unknown surrogates to usurp the role of parents and guiding children through the sexual and reproductive changes they will experience. And parents are the best advocates for their children, and we need to keep it that way. So least restrictive means, Mary talked about that, but what's terrifying about least restrictive means is that they will not be able to, our government will not be able to put reasonable restrictions on Article 22. And like Mary said, they have rejected all of them that were offered prior to the vote. But the terrifying thing is they will be able to define it. They will be able to keep making laws that parents can't do this, right, over and over, and bring, codify, bring all of the reproductive, what they're calling rights. And our children are going to be lost within all of this. No, wrong thing. So, don't leave it up to the courts to decide what reproductive autonomy means for your children. Vote no on Proposal 5, Article 22. Parents must keep their rights and responsibilities to teach and guide their children. We're not China.
Yeah.
And Article 22 will restrict a representative government from upholding parental rights and responsibilities, yet unleash them to continue to define them. What will the village look like without the parents?
All right, you want to take questions?
Sure. Open to discussion.
You know, what's good is if you just take the question and repeat it for the camera and answer it. I'll go up and sit with Carol.
Anybody have any questions, discussion?
I would guess that you're kind of preaching to the choir here. I haven't talked to with every person individually, but I think most of us probably showed up because we're already against this. I'm wondering if you have any indication of public response across the board, across the state. I mean, the fact that the current legislators have this supermajority and this got rushed through. They were elected by somebody, you know, and it's going to be the whole state, not just us, that's voting on this. So I think it's very tricky. How do you approach the people that maybe could be persuaded that are on the fence? And as much as some of the things you're saying, you're outraged about, we're outraged about, but sometimes outrage triggers outrage in the opposite direction. And I'm just a little wary about the best communication to those that maybe don't know, that maybe could be persuaded if they aren't forced back into their opposite rabbit hole by the outrage.
Right. So how do we approach those people that are on the fence is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Without going one way or the other extremes?
So I would like to answer that, and Carol's been working with the other organization as well. We are clearly aware of the demographics of the state. So Vermont Right to Life's done public opinion polling for all these years, and we know that most Vermonters self-identify as pro-choice. And that's the mistake Planned Parenthood is making. They say they're pro-choice, and then if you ask a series of questions, they don't line up with Planned Parenthood's radical idea of pro-choice, which is unlimited, unregulated, children making decisions, and all those sorts of things. So the point is we need to have conversations with pro-lifers and pro-choicers, genuinely, sincerely pro-choicers who really have a balance. They want to balance the life of the baby with some resources for the mother so she doesn't feel forced into abortion. They want limits on how far into the pregnancy. They want parents notified, all these things, but Planned Parenthood thinks they're with them. So I was on the radio the other day and I said, we're going to have conversations all around the state of Vermont, but we're not going to be having a conversation with the radicals who will be at the State House tomorrow. Those are the locked in, who loves abortion people, and we're not going to be wasting our time. We need to head for those who are persuadable. So that is why that Vermonters for Good Government is so very important. It will not, if the amendment said women and the amendment said abortion, then Vermont Right to Life would take the lead. But this is about so much more than abortion, that Vermonters for Good Government, and that resonates. What are we doing? We're amending our Constitution. Is it good for Vermont? It's a bad idea, and bad ideas have victims. And there will be victims of Proposal 5. Now, we need to reach out to a Vermont that has our children and grandchildren. That's one aspect that we have to hammer home. But good government will take on the kind of whole broad overview. And I'm sorry they can't be here tonight. I hope you will hear from them at some point soon. And they will have their kickoff in Montpelier, and a date will be coming. And that's where we all need to solidify as a shared values organization. And if you want to say something, please do.
So we've created this flyer, and yeah, I don't think it's provocative at all. But it would really allow you, on both of our flyers, we make sure we have the article there, because people need to know it's not focused on women and abortion. And then yeah, so that's what, take it, read it. I think you can have great conversations. What this one does is this one shows you state government, Planned Parenthood, and public school officials are stepping in as surrogate parents using the public school environment to gain access to Vermont children. If passed, Article 22 will make it exponentially worse by further eroding parental rights. So it starts at Act 35, what it is, that the parents don't even get to choose the mental health providers. So if Article 22, you think they're going to let our children, we won't even know who is counseling, because we do know that she's saying the good guys are leaving. Actually, you want to hear something interesting? So when we made a public records during Act 35, this is what came out of it, as in movement. So Senator Ayers and was the
Claire
chair.
Ayers?
Yeah, former Senator Ayers. She was the chair of the Committee on Health and Welfare at that time, and also Representative Lippert. Is he still around?
He's
Woo!
resigning.
Yes, I
Another
should
one
send
down.
him a card. So anyway.
Let's all sign it.
Oh, man. So anyway, so they sent out, they didn't change Act 35 or amend it. They sent out this memo, right? And what this memo says, Act 35 does not require mental health providers to treat minors, nor does it prohibit mental health providers from seeking parental consent. We didn't do anything wrong.
It's a lie.
So you know the mental health providers were voicing here, right? That they didn't want to be a part of this. And so the memo went out and Act 35 became law, so.
I do want to answer your concern. Just so you know, there is a tremendous amount of strategy happening behind the scenes, and it's developing. And it's not late, a lot of it's been going on, okay? So just so that, I'm not gonna say everything that's going on, but be assured that there are funds being raised and there are efforts to canvass, efforts to get to households. We're gonna need every hand on deck. If you have the right, students of any age who are the kind of person that can knock on doors, there's gonna be a knock on door campaign and more. Okay, I'm gonna make sure somebody else gets his hand on that. Good. Justin?
To your point.
Do you see that?
To your point, sir. If there's one thing that the abortion activists and everyone else on the left hate, it's simple facts. They hate facts. One of the things we can mention and use at the same time the human rights card against these activists is that it is a proven fact that a fetus actually does feel pain. I believe starting at 15 weeks, if I got my medical,
Yeah, it keeps moving.
if I have my medical signs correct. It does sleep, it does suck its thumb, and so on and so forth. So what I would say to the pro-abortionists is, how could you as a human being look at me in my eyes and say to me, you're okay with killing an unborn fetus? It's my body, my choice. No, just because the fetus is in your body doesn't mean it is your body. And the other thing is, how do you kill a newborn after it's born? You talk about human rights this and human rights that, but yet you're contradicting yourself, and you're an absolute hypocrite.
Yeah, well, and thank you, Justin, and I want feedback, but we know this. Being just pro-life is not going to win this day.
Right.
Okay. So media testing is going on, what resonates, and that's why I want to hear from you, so that resonates with you. And I'm gonna let you pick hands up, because there's too many.
Lynn's had her hand up for.
Okay, well, I'm thinking, all of these minors, they get to make these choices. Who's gonna take care of them afterwards? Are the parents who have no rights expected to?
The state.
Because they're gonna be victims. They're probably gonna be mentally ill after they do some of this
Gen
stuff.
Z is already messed up.
And where is that gonna go?
Yeah, we're really focused at Vermont Family Alliance of really being pro-parent. And I know, bring your phones up, because Kara Dansky, she is a feminist. She worked for ACLU at one time. And so if they think that this is just a conservative issue, it's not. Dr. So, playboy. Now, Abigail Schreier, her research were on hundreds of families, liberal families that affirmed their children, and then their children became homeless, they lost them, they did everything right, and they lost their kids. And we're talking hundreds, and she shows that the activism is it's just everywhere at this time, because people don't want to be canceled, right? And even the teenage brain, I would think that most people would, if you had a conversation of just saying, are we not asking minors to make adult decisions? There's something, I forget her name, but it's like, why are we in a hurry? Why are we in a hurry? I even fell for that they're trying to get them when they're young because they can't transition when they're older. No way, that's not true. They transition when they're older. And we know that the brain development for consequences and critical thinking doesn't develop until mid-20s, right? And some of us, we're not even there yet. Right. So it's like, that's a conversation. It's just like, think about why are they in a hurry? Why do they want our kids? And you have to ask the question, is this impeding our children's education? Because I know that in raising 3 kids from trauma and abuse, that what happens when kids don't feel safe, that's the first thing they lose their identity, right? It's the first thing they lose, and they're preying on it. And I'm not talking, we raised our kids in the public school, and we loved our liberal teachers, but it's a totally different world now. Our liberal teachers are conservative now, but yeah.
You have a question back there? No. Yep.
Me?
Yep.
Oh, so tonight I've heard a lot, okay, and a lot of this is happening and this might happen and that might happen and blah, 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 blah. When we want to bring something out to the public, we need to find 2 or 3 at most that we want everybody to know about this law and key into them. And for me, I mean, it would be, this is not a codification of Roe versus Wade, because that's what people think it is.
No.
This is broader, boom. Parents will lose their rights.
Yeah.
Families will not longer be close together. And the third one is that physicians, et cetera, have to do it, have to provide whatever is requested. I think maybe there's others too, but we've got to have people remember just 2 or 3 things at most that we key into and get them focused. You can elaborate on them, but if we come out with 10, 15 different issues that's going to happen, we're going to lose everybody.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Overwhelming.
Exactly right.
Pinpoint.
And you picked, so far, the 3 things that have really floated to the top. It goes way beyond Roe versus Wade. They need to understand that Roe v. Wade had, so what we're trying to do tonight is give you that feeling that you understand why we're choosing those. We'll be choosing 3 major things, but we need people on the ground who can speak well in a broader, as well as the flyer that will go out with the targeted things. So we have to make sure we've got those 3 things right, and maybe it'll be 4. But goes way beyond Roe v. Wade, which had some care and concern for the trimester system. They tried to say the state had a more vested interest as the pregnancy developed. So this is entirely not Roe v. Wade. And the fact that it's vague and we don't know the repercussions in parents, those are 3 of the top. And that will get narrowed down. So we don't want to stand here and just say the 3 things over and over. We want you to have a really big, broad.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned with what I hear out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I respond, then I go to those things.
You're going to hear it's a simple amendment
I
that
know.
will enshrine abortion in the Vermont Constitution in case it becomes illegal. And where you'll want to be saying it goes way beyond Roe v. Wade, doesn't say woman and doesn't say abortion. Those things get their attention and their curiosity up.
And I think that's a good point, finding those 3 common areas that could also be bridges to an agreement. And I think that's important because,
Bridges to what?
like being Addison County Right to Life, I didn't put it out there that we were putting this on because some people that might be on the fence or not really understand what it is, if they heard it's right to life,
Yeah.
they run the other way. Whereas just letting people know, look, this is information that you need to get. Come have a discussion with us. Let's find that common ground. And I think that's kind of where you're headed anyway.
And we need to promote Vermonters for Good Government, because you won't have that feeling that it's a right to life event. But so that everybody could sign, if you all went to vermontersforgoodgovernment.org and sign up to get their information. You can ignore the request for money. We just need your name.
And we are taking donations tonight for them, rather than for Addison County Right to Life, for them, to help them keep moving with this. There's a donation jar at the table.
I think you've put your finger on a couple of things. And one is that there tends to be a smoke screen here. And I see 2 red flags. One is, we saw the last time around, and that is controlling the vote and voter fraud. And that is absolutely essential, because they could care less if they can pull that off like they did the last time. The other thing is, there's something lurking in the background that we're seeing with this fraudulent vaccine, and that is they've immunized the drug companies from any retaliation. And they could use that same principle in this, taking the children away from their parents and then immunizing anybody who takes care of those children and diverts them into any other thing that you're talking about, and make it not, those people not available for legal recourse. So that they could actually take counselors, or they could bring their own counselors in, and they could make them immune to any parental resistance of any form. And that needs to be really watched when they put something through like this.
Okay. Listen to Channel 5 News the other night, 11 o'clock news. Man interviewing a very nicely dressed with a pet on a leash, asking her thoughts about Mother's Day. And her response at 11 o'clock p.m. was, well, my poor mother, she had 8 kids. And after I was born, she died because of a home abortion with a hanger. And I thought to myself, 11 o'clock p.m. Channel 5 News, deliberate, had a picture of the mother. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, right now, don't put up with the hanger excuse and say we're going backwards. Because there's a pill you can order right online now for a home abortion. Any woman right now, am I wrong? Can order a pill and have a home abortion with no one attending, no nurse, no care, who knows what the situation is at home, and could easily die for, whatever, 100 reasons why they could die. So don't listen to the hanger story, because it's happening right now with a pill. Secondly, I think it's important that we understand the function of Family Alliance, because you're all doing great work, but it's confusing to us out here, especially us that have jumped in late. We're late bloomers. The functions of Family Alliance and the functions of Vermont government, and how I feel like we've got an army out here that's at the gate that wants to do stuff. There are feet that want to be on the ground, but they don't know what to do. And they don't know where to do it or how to do it. And I know that's going to be happening tomorrow. You're doing some kind of
Oh, it's not us. No, Planned Parenthood will be on the State House steps tomorrow.
It's them.
It's them.
Oh, ow. So anyway, would you explain that?
That's another group.
So do you see how equipped they are, how
Well,
organized?
they have all the government funding.
I know,
So
I know.
we are up against it. So the energy here in this room needs to fan out. Those who are in the middle of being convinced are probably not coming to rallies and doing things like coming here tonight. So it is this energy that needs to fan out
Right.
and share information. And Vermont Family Alliance is Carol is just a well-versed expert and with her own experience, right, of raising children and with the state and with the
But
schools.
what is function of Family Life Alliance, or Family Alliance?
We are focused on pro-family.
So you're a
we-
lobbyist or
Oh,
an
no.
activist?
Yeah, we just started in November.
Oh, really?
Article 22 catapulted us into existence.
And you are separate from Vermont Sisters for Good Government. What do
We
they
have
do?
common causes.
Pardon me?
We have common causes.
Common causes,
Com-
oh, yeah.
Coming at Proposal 5 from different
And you give
perspectives.
testimony, right, at state level, so that's the other key trial, you're watchdogging, if you will. And then
Oh, yeah.
And then reporting to your membership.
Yeah.
Okay, on the other side, who is Vicki Strong?
She's a pro-life legislator who fought Proposal 5 and
And
is
a
working
Republican.
closely with Vermonters for Good Government.
And a Republican.
And a
And
Republican.
her son, Matthew
Is the
Strong.
executive director.
Son, okay, because I wasn't sure that either.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we-
and Carol's being modest. She's done radio shows where we've done these kind of speaking events around, so we're trying to bring you different perspectives.
Information.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm not, I keep taking your job. You
Oh, no,
pick.
Yeah, I noticed your material says save the date. I just want to make sure that folks know that ballots are being mailed
Amen.
to you
Amen.
well before November 8th.
That's right.
September
And you can
24th.
vote beginning in September.
That's right.
Really,
September
that early?
24th, yeah. And so we have a huge job to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So save the 2 months before
Yes,
the election.
For sure,
You know, another thing you can do, they're putting boxes out. Our clerk got a box, the voting boxes. And ask your select board to put up a camera. I mean, we have to start doing something.
Yeah.
Or mules.
And now, and people can address their select boards, address their school boards, they're filmed, like Channel 15 is here today. And you just ask for a few minutes on your select board and just give them, as you had so well put, 3 things. Just say, this is on the ballot, everyone needs to know about it. You can speak to your town clerk, put a brochure up in there where everybody's asked for permission. I think you can put something about a ballot issue, item up. So think of ways, we're just hoping this spreads out, and this is a political question now, but pastors can speak from the pulpit.
Yes.
Your representatives who are with us can speak. Use all the forums you can to raise those doubts about what they say is a simple amendment. I
The
mean,
Addison has had 3 letters to the editor in the last 3 weeks, and articles, well-written, well-done, and well-versed on pro-choice.
okay.
It's been,
And are they on Proposal 5?
yes,
We need to counter those, you guys, and
we gotta get letters to the editor going.
yeah, and if somebody could make sure I see those letters, that would be really good. We're happy to, help you with a letter, but we need to be everywhere. And start by saying, it's not a simple amendment. You don't be deceived, it's not a simple amendment.
I feel this is a very stupid question, but, and I'm married to an attorney, so having said that.
All good.
It's just me speaking here, but this is a constitutional amendment. I think it's wonderful to know that one has not been made, that we have a small constitution and nothing has been made to this constitution for all these many, many years. That struck me hard tonight. That was good to hear.
Okay, good to know.
Okay. Secondly, what if there's a specific agenda, which we're pretty clear there is, why is it, I know, but that it is a constitutional change as compared to just a statute, a law? They're scared about Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
And why is it that it's being couched in this vagueness without really understanding what the implications are? We don't know the economic side of it all. We don't know what the the court system's going to do with it, there's no precedence here, that all of a sudden we're into this realm. What is it to say, if you want to have women's reproductive rights, put it in law, but not change the Constitution? What am I missing here?
And they did put it in law, but that's not enough. And the leaders of the Senate and House and Planned Parenthood said, we want to be a shining example for other states to follow. So what's happened here is that Planned Parenthood, you know, they come to Vermont, we're a small state, and when you want a national agenda, how many times have we seen it on marijuana? I mean, it just goes on and on. They come to Vermont, it's easy. And so because Planned Parenthood so dominates the state house, that they just do whatever Planned Parenthood wants. There's no such thing as a business in Vermont that isn't regulated, right? I mean, we have state regulations on everything. But this so benefits Planned Parenthood because it means that hands off. You'll be no oversight, no regulation, no government intervention in what they do or how they do it ever. So they have that kind of ability to, and they fired him up, Roe v. Wade's being overturned, and they're getting all fired up, and they say, no, here's the language, we worked it out with the Attorney General, and it's just a simple amendment, and so everybody just kind of signs off on it. So it's a huge job, it's completely unnecessary. We have a statute that's one of the most extreme statutes in the country and in the world. So the United States of America, in having unlimited, unregulated abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, joins with just 7 other countries, including China and North Korea, in allowing that. So you can go to Europe, abortion's restricted up at 12 weeks or 15 weeks. We're just unbalanced here in Vermont and in the country. So lots of points to make, and we'll help you make them, but the energy's here.
Do you know?
I gotta have her do that.
Do you know, Mary, when our new Speaker of the House took her position as Speaker of the House?
She took her position 2 years, I believe, before 2019, when they started making abortion the centerpiece of the legislative session, and she was a former Planned Parenthood top-level employee.
Top level. There's your
And
answer.
the lobbyist for Planned Parenthood is the former Speaker, Majority Leader of the House. So I do a whole talk on it, and it only takes 2 hours if you want me to do that.
I can add some more about Planned Parenthood. So, and it's on the sheet, but there were 2 reproductive initiatives for minors that were released by the Department of Education in collaboration with Planned Parenthood. The first is known as the Condom Availability Program, which requires that schools provide free condoms to 7th through 12th grade. And not just, we can all remember that you had to walk to the nurse's office to get the condom, right? They call it strategically. So within the law, the examples they use would be, the sports room, classrooms, or they actually or anywhere else. Now, in this condom availability law, Planned Parenthood is the condom provider. So at the very least, PPNNE program, which is Planned Parenthood of New England, a secondary school may request safer sex supplies from PPNNE, which are available free of charge to secondary schools up to the limits of available funding. So it's just like a lobbyist. I mean, can you imagine your right to life, having access to the kids like Planned Parenthood? And then also the Department of Education came up with a full spectrum educator guide to implementing LGBTQ plus inclusive sex ed. And quote, it says, the development of this resource is a result of a collaboration between Outright Vermont, Planned Parenthood of Northern New England, and the Vermont Agency of Education. Absolutely no parental groups. And this is being implemented. But make sure you tell your parents that by law, there's a statute that they can opt their children out. but they have to make sure they opt them out of any LGBTQ inclusive teaching, because they're just, it's going through the whole school, right? Strategically planning. But,
Hey, could I
yeah.
just make another quick comment for you, Carol? The new law is in conflict with the statutory rape law, but now requires public middle and high school laws where children as young as 11 are in attendance to place free condoms in locations that are safe and readily. But it's actually in conflict with statutory rape law. If a teacher feels that a child is engaging in any kind of sexual activity, they're supposed to report it to social services. So my question is, we now have laws that we're signing in that nobody knows about, they're being lied to, and it's in direct conflict with laws that are on the books.
I
And
would say
nobody's
they're-
pushing
They're
back.
exempt, they're exempt.
Nobody's
They're
pushing
exempt
back.
from mandatory reporting on this.
Oh, they're exempt.
They were specifically exempt if it has to do with the condom program.
So my question is, and this is far-reaching, over the top, you know me. How about a, what do you call it, when everybody gets together and files a lawsuit? Can that be done through, because we have not had fair representation. They have, the media won't cover it, only one side's being shown. I listen to the news every day on several stations, and there's only one side, always. The newspapers are only showing one side. So could there be a, what's the term for that?
Class action.
Excuse me?
Class action?
Class action lawsuit against the media in this state. I mean, that would be a great job for Vermonters for good government, because right now we've got lousy government.
If an idea like that would have to be pursued by somebody else.
Not a lot of time.
I know there's not a lot of time, but there's also a whole state that we're dealing with, so, I mean, we couldn't possibly
Well,
charge.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
And I don't know if
So-
you could have if you could have a class action suit once it's a constitutional right. I'm not sure. We'd have to
Yeah.
ask our lawyers. Yeah.
I know we asked about Act 35, and you can't take anyone to court unless,
You have an injury, you have to have a
Yep.
plaintiff.
yeah, damages. That's why Texas got rid of damages, so that people go to court without damages.
Yeah, Mississippi, okay.
So if there aren't any other questions, I just have a couple things. John Cristiano is running for, well, it's the new arranged district of Addison, part of New Haven, Bridport, well, not Addison, Bridport, Waltham, is Waltham in there?
Weybridge, some of Weybridge
And a little bit of
Street.
Middlebury, I think, is in there. If you're in the district, that district,
District 5, add 5.
he needs signatures so he can get on the ballot. Because we are losing Harvey Smith this year, so.
Oh, Harvey.
If anybody lives in that district and has not signed for him yet, we have him.
And then Lynn.
Yeah, Lynn. And Lynn is running also. What district are you?
For, I'm from Bristol, Starksboro, Lincoln, and Moncton, but I have, if anybody would sign one for Valerie Mullen. Mine, I already turned it
So you're
in.
running for the House?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
No further questions? Thank you so much for coming. The information we took from you guys at the door, I will pass it on to Mary. And you may be getting updates from us as well as to other meetings we might have moving forward and how we can help.
And if everybody brings one other person, that would be
That's
great.
right.
I am unafraid, and neither is Carol, of any opposition coming in. We'll handle them. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, you can answer.
Bringing back Vermonters for good government is one of the things.